All right, get ready, because today we're going deep on some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Law of One.
Okay.
We'll be looking at the Federal Reserve.
Right.
And what it all means for this thing we all think about so much, financial
Yeah.
liberation.
Mm.
You know, you've been exploring these ideas. I know.
I have been.
And it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It
There's
is.
a lot there.
It really is. You've got this framework.
Yeah.
You know, this spiritual framework,
Mm-hmm.
the Law of One, that talks about reality as an illusion, this training ground for our souls.
Right.
Then you've got this very real institution, the Federal Reserve, that's shaping our financial lives. And it's like, how do those two things connect?
Exactly. So for anyone who hasn't sort of gone down this rabbit hole, the Law of One is basically a series of channeled communications from an extraterrestrial being named Ra.
Okay.
So think of it as like their perspective on the universe,
Uh-huh.
on spiritual evolution, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Right, and one of the central themes in the Law of One is this concept of two paths, service to self and service to others, which suggests that everything we experience, including our financial systems, is part of this like grand cosmic game, a way for us to choose which path we align with.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit.
Sure.
Service to self, that's pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yeah.
It's about focusing on your own gain, your own power, even if it means stepping on others to get there.
Exactly. It's a path driven by ego.
Right.
By the desire for control and dominance.
Yeah.
And the Law of One suggests that those who are deeply aligned with service to self might actually manipulate systems like, say, the Federal Reserve.
Hold on. Are we saying the Federal Reserve is like some shadowy cabal controlled by power-hungry aliens?
Well, not exactly. Remember, the Law of One describes reality as an illusion.
Right.
So it's not necessarily about physical beings, you know, pulling strings, but rather about the energy, about the intentions behind the systems that we create.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So if the Federal Reserve is a product of this third density illusion, which Ra calls it,
right,
and third density is just their term for the level of consciousness humanity is currently at.
Yes.
Where we're really focused on material finality, duality, separation.
Exactly.
So if the Fed is part of this illusion and it's potentially influenced by these service to self energies, what does that mean for our quest for financial liberation?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And I think the Law of One suggests that true financial liberation isn't just about accumulating wealth within the existing system.
Okay.
It's about breaking free from the illusion of scarcity.
Wow.
That the system perpetuates.
So you're saying it's not about becoming a millionaire, it's about changing our whole relationship with money.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true abundance comes from aligning with service to others.
Okay.
From recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, and from using our resources to create a more just and harmonious world.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Good.
But how does this tie back to the Federal Reserve?
Okay.
You mentioned something about fractional reserve banking.
Right.
And how that might be a tool for control.
Right.
So can you explain fractional reserve banking to me like I'm 5 years old?
Oh, okay.
Because honestly, I think most people, myself included, have a vague idea of what it is, but not a solid understanding.
Sure. Imagine you deposit $100 into a bank.
Okay.
Now, the bank doesn't have to keep all $100 on hand.
Okay.
They can loan out a portion of it, say $90, to someone else.
Uh-huh.
That borrower then deposits that $90 into another bank.
Right.
And that bank can loan out a portion of that, and so on and so on.
So the initial $100 ends up creating much more than $100 in circulation.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a system that allows banks to create money out of thin air, essentially.
Okay.
And while this can stimulate economic activity, it also creates debt and can lead to inflation.
Ah, okay.
See?
I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So if those with service to self intentions can manipulate this system, they could essentially control the flow of money, create debt, keep people trapped in this cycle of scarcity. Wow.
And if we're constantly struggling to make ends meet, to pay off our debts, how can we possibly focus on serving others, on evolving spiritually?
Right.
We're so caught up in this material game that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
So are you saying that achieving true financial liberation requires us to not only understand how the system works, but also to potentially break free from it? at least in some way.
It's a radical idea, I know.
It is.
But the Law of One doesn't provide a step-by-step guide
Right.
on how to do this. It's more about raising our awareness,
For sure.
questioning our assumptions, and considering alternative ways of being in the world.
So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around this? Like, if the system is rigged,
Yeah.
so to speak, where do we even start to create real change?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll dive into deeper.
Okay.
But before we get there, let me ask you,
Yeah.
what resonates with you most about this connection between the Law of One and the Federal Reserve?
Honestly, it's this idea that maybe, just maybe, the struggle for financial freedom is about more than just making money. That it's about breaking free from a system that might be intentionally designed to keep us focused on material gain.
Right.
To distract us from our true purpose.
That's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
And one that I think is at the heart of what the Law of One is trying to teach us.
Yeah.
It really is.
That's incredible. So we're talking about breaking free from this system.
Yeah.
But isn't that a bit of a paradox?
Yeah.
We need money to survive, right?
Sure.
To buy food and pay rent and all that practical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we reconcile that with this idea of detaching from the need for material wealth?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It really gets to the heart of this shift in perspective.
Okay.
Detachment from the system doesn't necessarily mean, going off the grid or rejecting money altogether.
Right.
It's more about shifting our internal relationship to it.
Okay, so what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
How do you detach from something
All right.
that's so deeply ingrained in our society and our daily lives?
Well, think about it this way. We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we need more.
Yeah.
Bigger houses, fancier cars, the latest gadgets.
Mm-hmm.
And this creates this sense of lack, this feeling that we're never enough, never have enough.
It's like that hamster wheel that we were talking about earlier, right?
Exactly.
We're constantly running but never really getting anywhere.
That's it. And so detachment starts with, becoming aware of these messages, these patterns of thinking.
Right.
It's about questioning whether we truly need all the things we think we need.
So it's like a mental detox from consumerism.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
It's about simplifying our lives,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on what truly matters, and finding fulfillment in things that aren't tied to material possessions.
Okay, but let's be realistic.
Sure.
We live in a world where everything costs money.
Right.
How can we possibly detach from the system when it feels like it has us by the throat?
That's where the concept of service to others comes in.
Okay.
The Law of One suggests that when we shift our focus from personal gain to serving the greater good,
Right.
we tap into a different kind of abundance,
Okay.
a spiritual abundance
Right.
that isn't limited by the constraints of the material world.
So it's not about rejecting the material world altogether,
Right.
but about transforming our relationship to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected,
Right.
that our actions have ripple effects,
Mm.
and that by aligning with service to others, we can create a more harmonious and abundant reality for everyone.
So I'm really trying to wrap my head around this. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm on board with this whole idea of shifting my focus to service to others.
Okay.
What are some practical steps I can take to align my financial choices with this principle?
Well, it starts with becoming conscious of where your money is going.
Mm-mm.
Are you supporting businesses and organizations that align with your values?
Okay.
Are you investing in things that contribute to the greater good?
So it's about being mindful of the impact of my financial decisions. Not just thinking about my own bottom line, but also about the ripple effects
Exactly.
of my spending and investing.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's about using your financial resources as a tool for positive change.
Okay.
And remember, even small actions can make a difference.
Right.
It's not about
Yeah.
becoming a millionaire philanthropist overnight.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices,
Mm-hmm.
step by step, that align with your values.
I like that. It feels empowering
Yeah.
to think that even in a system that feels rigged, we still have the power to make choices that create a better world.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The Law of One suggests that as more and more people shift their consciousness, as they align with service to others,
Right.
it creates a ripple effect that can ultimately transform the entire system.
So we're not just talking about personal transformation, but collective evolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll move beyond the need for systems like the Federal Reserve altogether.
Right.
Perhaps we'll create a new way of relating to each other and to resources that's based on abundance, cooperation, and shared prosperity.
Yeah, that's a future I can get behind.
I know, right?
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
If the Federal Reserve, as it exists, is a product of this third-density illusion,
right,
what might a financial system aligned with service to others principles actually look like?
Yeah.
It's hard to even imagine.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's an important exercise.
Okay.
It requires us to step outside the confines of our current thinking
Right.
and envision something radically different.
All right, let's try it.
Okay.
Let's imagine a world where the financial system is designed to serve the well-being of all beings.
Good.
What might that look like?
Well, for starters, it might be a system where resources are distributed more equitably.
Okay.
Where everyone has access to the basic necessities of life.
So no more poverty.
Right.
No more people struggling to make ends meet.
Exactly.
Equals.
It might be a system where money is seen as a tool for collaboration and community building rather than as a means of individual accumulation and control.
So instead of competing with each other for resources,
right,
we'd be working together to create abundance for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And imagine a world where businesses are incentivized to operate in a way that benefits not just their shareholders, but also their employees, their communities, and the environment.
It sounds like a utopia.
Right.
But is it even possible to create something like that within the current framework? Or would we need a complete overhaul of the system?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Law of One doesn't offer any easy answers.
Right.
It's more about offering a different perspective, a different way of seeing the world and our place in it.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? If someone is feeling overwhelmed by all of this, by the complexity of the financial system, by the feeling that they're trapped in a cycle of debt and scarcity, where do they even begin?
I understand.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming. That's for sure.
It is.
I mean, we're talking about some pretty big concepts here.
Yeah.
Spiritual evolution, the illusion of reality.
Right.
Reimagining the entire financial system.
It is a lot to digest, but
Yeah.
remember, the Law of One emphasizes the power of individual choice.
Okay.
Even small shifts in consciousness, small acts of service can create ripples of change.
So it's not about feeling like I have to solve all the world's problems by myself.
No, not at all. It's about focusing on what we can control. You know, our own thoughts, our own actions, our own choices.
Okay, that feels more manageable.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm ready to take that first step.
Okay.
What are some practical things I can do to align my finances with the principles of service to others?
Well, it could be as simple as supporting local businesses that are committed to ethical practices.
Right.
Or choosing to invest in companies that are working to create positive social or environmental change.
So it's about putting my money where my heart is.
Exactly. Aligning your financial decisions with your values.
Okay.
And, remember, it's not about perfection.
Right.
It's about progress.
Yeah.
Every step you take in the direction of service to others creates a more positive ripple effect.
I love that analogy of the ripples. It really drives home the point that even small actions have a far-reaching impact.
They really do.
Yeah.
And the more people who make these conscious choices, the more we shift the collective energy, the closer we get to creating a world that reflects the abundance and interconnectedness that the Law of One speaks of.
It's almost like we're planting seeds for a new financial reality. One that's rooted in cooperation and shared prosperity.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe those seeds will eventually blossom into something beyond our wildest dreams.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of financial liberation, one that goes way beyond just accumulating wealth.
And that's the key, isn't it? It's about shifting our focus from scarcity to abundance, from competition to collaboration, from serving the self to serving the whole.
It's a radical shift.
It is.
But it's also incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
It gives me hope that we can create a better world, a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
And remember, that journey starts with each of us.
Yeah.
It starts with making conscious choices, taking small steps, and believing in the power of our collective intention to create a more just and harmonious reality.
Well, to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, to keep questioning the systems that shape our world.
For sure.
And to keep taking those small steps toward a more abundant and interconnected future.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time.